They descended in absolute silence, swallowed by the cobalt darkness of the Atlantic. Only the trembling beams of their helmet lamps pushed back the void. The research vessel Aquila floated far above, a ghost on the surface compared to the crushing pressure below. For months, sonar anomalies had hinted at something unusual, a pattern too geometric to be volcanic, too consistent to be random. But no one expected a village. Not here, not at this depth. Dr. Elise Morgan, marine archaeologist and lead diver, monitored her depth gauge as she sank through the thermocline. The cold wrapped around her like an invisible shroud. She had spent half her life chasing legends of coastal settlements lost to early oceanic shifts, but she had never imagined that the Atlantic would surrender one so intact. Visibility dropping, she said into her comms, her voice steady but tinged with anticipation. Behind her, divers Camille O'Brien and Sophia Rojas drifted in descent formation, each step of their breathing echoing strangely through the headsets. At 3,200 meters, the seafloor began to materialize, first as a vague shadow, then as textured ridges carved by underwater currents. Elise angled her light down. The beam struck something straight. Too straight. Structure at 10 meters ahead. She confirmed. Doc Camel descended beside her, his light overlapping hers. What they saw did not belong in the wild chaos of the deep. A rooftop. A simple, slanted wooden rooftop, preserved by silt, sand, and the freezing black water of the abyss. It was coated in thick green algae, delicate sea moss, and pale clusters of sponge that looked like ghostly blossoms. The boards beneath, darkened by centuries, still held their shape. Is that wood? Sophia whispered, thought there was awe in her voice. Wood shouldn't survive full oceanic submersion for this long. Not unless something extraordinary had preserved it. They touched down gently on the seafloor, their boots sinking into soft sediment, mixed with fine strands of kelp-like algae that had spread from the structure outward like a muted green carpet. Elise paused a moment, letting the gravity of discovery settle in her chest. This wasn't just a ruin. It was a village. A real village. She stepped forward and swept her light across the darkness. As the beam traveled, more shapes appeared. Another house, then another, rising from the sloped seafloor. Wooden beams protruded like the broken ribs of forgotten giants. A narrow street, half buried in mud, stretched between them. And on the far side, an old carriage, its wheels covered in marine sponge, its frame wrapped in fine tendrils of sea growth rested. Against a collapsed fence, Camel exhaled sharply. This is impossible. Record everything, Elise said. Her voice was hushed, reverent, as though afraid louder words might wake the village from its eternal sleep. They advanced slowly, each step sending a cloud of silt swirling upward. The houses, though decayed, still showed craftsmanship. Carved lintels, crossbeams fitted without nails, and shutters so saturated with seawater that they seemed sculpted from stone. Some were fully upright. Others leaned precariously, consumed by coral and sponge blooms. Looks like a fishing settlement, Sophia said, scanning the shapes, the layout. Small, maybe a few dozen people, judging from the number of structures. Except it's 3 kilometers underwater, Kemal added dryly. Elise knelt beside the first house. She brushed the algae aside with gloved fingers, revealing ancient tool marks on the wood. People had cut these planks by hand. People who had lived, breathed, built, and dreamed right where she now hovered. She checked her recorder. These homes are constructed from pine and likely oak, indicating a northern Atlantic origin. Silt layering suggests submersion occurred abruptly, not gradually. Possibly seismic displacement or an early proto-tsunami event. As she spoke, her gaze drifted across the submerged horizon. More buildings continued beyond the range of their lights, lost in the deep's unbroken night. They moved toward the central lane. Here, the density of marine life thickened. Bright red tube worm. Colonies sprouted from the corners of wooden doorway. Pearly sea slugs crawled along the ridges of a fence. A pair of translucent fish drifted lazily over a row of wooden barrels that lay partially fused into the silt. Everything was wrapped in a soft, shimmering biology, a living shroud dot. When they reached the old carriage, Camel circled it carefully. The wheels were still round, still recognizable, though thickly coated with moss. The lantern brackets remained attached. "Handmade," he said. "This design, it looks 18th century. Maybe even older." Sophia floated closer. "But that makes no sense. There's no record of settlements built this far offshore." "No record we've found," Elise corrected. "Until today, they documented every angle, every detail. The ocean absorbed their voices, letting only the faintest vibrations linger." After half an hour, Elise signaled to continue deeper into the village. The next structure they reached was larger, sturdier, and better preserved. Its door hung crooked on a single hinge. The surrounding sediment had built up like a dune pressed against the wall. Algae draped down from the roof beams like long emerald curtains. "We should check." "The interior," Elise said. Camel hesitated. "You sure it's stable?" "It survived 3 centuries under pressure," she replied. "We'll be careful." They slipped inside one by one. Light filled the small chamber with a haze of suspended particles. The interior was astonishingly intact. A wooden table lay on its side, its legs broken. Clay bowls, cracked but recognizable, rested partly buried in sediment. Rusted metal hooks hung from the beams, and in the corner lay a chest, its lid slightly ajar. Sophia drifted toward the chest and directed her beam into the gap. "Looks empty." Elise floated near a series of scratches on the wall. Not random mark etchings. Symbols, perhaps a calendar. A message. A warning. "Camel, get a scan here," she said. He swept his multi-beam sensor across the wall. The device hummed softly. "Getting it now." These markings don't match any known indigenous patterns. They're more utilitarian. As they worked, a sudden low vibration rolled through the seafloor, gently shaking the sediment. The team froze. "What was that?" Sophia asked. "Probably a tectonic grumble," Camel replied. "Could be miles away." Elise checked her instruments. "Nothing alarming. Let's continue." They left the structure and followed the sloping decline toward what looked like the village's center. Here, the architecture changed. A larger building, perhaps a meeting hall, leaned heavily toward the ocean floor. Its upper beams snapped like brittle bones. They approached cautiously. Elise noticed something protruding from the entrance, a wooden sign nearly consumed by sponge. She brushed it gently. Beneath the algae, faint carved letters appeared. The name of the village, perhaps. But the script was too eroded to read. "Let's get closer," she said. They entered the hall. Here, marine life had taken full ownership. Massive sponge formations covered the ceiling. Veins of algae traced the walls like vascular networks. A colony of pale anemones waved gently in the current, as though greeting the intruders. "It's like walking inside a living organism," Sophia whispered. Elise moved to the center, where the remnants of a long table stretched across the floor. Split in two. More objects lay scattered: wooden ladles, a rusted iron pot, broken fragments of rope. "Whatever happened here," Elise said quietly, "it happened fast. People didn't take anything. They didn't flee with belongings." Camel clicked a photo of a fallen support beam. Could be a massive seabed slip. Something dragged this entire landmass into the deep. Sophia drifted toward a back alcove. "Guys, you're going to want to see this." They followed her beam to what lay behind the collapsed boards. A human silhouette, Not a skeleton, not quite. The ocean had stripped away almost all organic material, but the arrangement of bones remained partly intact, embedded in the silt. Ribs curved upward in a delicate arch,